Hello, I'm Mike Tollefson, and I'm going to create a custom Gemini Gem that will allow it to help students learn a specific subject. And so that's kind of the goal of my different videos is, well, how can we create a custom prompt that students can use for learning and not just spitting out answers? And so starting here on this particular slide, ignore the step 3 part because this is part of a different presentation, but part of what we need to do is we need to tell it what to do. That's the most important part. And you're going to likely need to do some testing and see if it does what you want it to do. And so when we created a gem, and I'll show how to create the gem in a moment, we need to give it a set of instructions. And just like any interaction with an AI chatbot, the prompt, the quality of the prompt will dictate the quality of the response. And so here's one general format on how to do that. And so in the previous video, I showed some custom bots that already said the word persona, and then these other things were actually specified without these words. But the idea is, okay, you got to tell the chatbot what you want it to do and what the role. And so what I've shown previously is, all right, we want a Socratic tutor that's encouraging and compassionate. On the right side of this, there's a slightly different example that I grabbed. You're an expert academic writing tutor. Your task is to help students improve their essays, right? And so you're telling it how to interact with the students, and so that kind of sets up where you're going with that. Now, some of these merge into each other. They're not necessarily separate things, but not only am I telling the AI what I expect it to do, like expert academic writing tutor for the example on the right, but then I define its purpose and say what is it supposed to do. And so then you kind of start to spell out, okay, well, here's the thing I want you to do, which like over here, feedback on structure, clarity, and argumentation. Always maintain a supportive and encouraging tone. Well, that kind of goes into persona again. So it kind of goes back and forth. Format a response with clear headings. So that goes to this last bullet point, format. How do you want the output to look like? Context, what are you expecting them to learn? So you're putting all these little things in there to help guide the chatbot in a direction that you want it to go. All right. And so what we're going to do is, if this will go away, there we go. We're going to go back to, let me close the previous, well, I don't need to close it. And so we're going to go back to gems. All right, I'm going to go back to here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to I did not mean to click that button. I'm on gems. New gem is over here on the right side. And so since the example I did before was about energy, I'm going to say energy, let's call it study buddy, since I keep using that. Right, I can give it a description, which I don't think I'm going to do at this time. I'm going to close that just so there's a little bit more space. And so here is where I can start to type things, right? And so there's a number of different ways to do this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a really basic thing here, like so what I'm trying to write is something that's going to help students understand mechanical energy, right? So you are an expert. Let's go tutor. So you're an expert tutor helping freshmen understand mechanical energy in physics. So that's starting to set things up. You are Socratic. You are. No, you should have a Socratic, and I'm spelling it wrong right now. That's why that exists. Socratic. You should have a Socratic tone. Never give a direct answer. Prompt the student to probe their understanding in order to guide the next response. Right. So I'm trying to basically give it the idea that I don't want direct answers. Well, what I should say, never give a direct. I'm going to change that. Never. Well, no, I'm going to leave it that way because I'm going to show you something else, and we'll see what it does on its own. So you should have a Socratic tone, never give a direct answer, prompt the student to probe their understanding in order to guide the next response. The focus, so some specific content related stuff that I would put in here. The focus is on work, kinetic energy, and potential energy, and I'm actually going to put in elastic and gravitational so it knows not to do other stuff. And so, that's kind of a starting point. It's probably not exactly what I wanted to do. And that's part of the testing process. And so I could at this time test it out on the right side. But one feature that there's a couple of things I want to show you before I do that. So down here it says default, no default tool. For the use case that we are focused on, we are actually going to set a default tool. And so when I click on this, guided learning is one of the options. So I'm absolutely positively going to put that in there. Another thing that you can do is you can add files, right? So like if you have a problem set or you have notes or you have something like that, you can put that in there, right? So I can go ahead, I can go add from drive. I can say energy packet is what I called it. And so have that search it, put that in there. And I'm doing this for freshmen, so I'm going to grab the honors one because it's right there. So I can inform this to help it understand. Now, one last thing that I'm going to show you before I engage the Gemini half of this is there's this button down here. And as I hover over it, you can see it says use Gemini to rewrite instructions. So I wasn't terribly concerned about my prompt to start with because it's not the best prompt in the world, to be honest, because I did it on the fly. But when I go ahead and I click on this, it's gonna think about it and change it, and hopefully change it for the better. In theory, it will, and it'll probably be more wordy as it works on that. And what it should be doing, we should get a result that right. So now it has those different items that I had listed on the other slide, right? So look at how much more robust this has become based upon the information I initially gave it, right? So now it's got purpose and goals, right? So dedicated physics tutor, mechanical energy, freshman physics, deep understanding of concepts, and some of the words I put in there, Socratic method, right? Behavior and rules. So it actually created its own section and has this framework around Socratic tutoring. Going down there, and it's talking about, like this is good. What happens to the velocity if we double the mass? That's a great example question that I would ask as a physics teacher that it figured out on its own. And so step by step, blah, 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 conceptual focus, right? So it's using some of these things. One of the things that I might personally do is I don't use those abbreviations. I might change those abbreviations. So for example, I might change K to so kinetic energy, we just use K. For potential energy, it's UG, and for elastic potential energy, it's US. And so now I can customize it for the way that I teach it. What the chatbot did is it took what it thinks the normal way or the majority way is, right? It's usually predicting what the most common thing is. And if I teach it a different way, I can tell it. These are great real world examples down there. Then it talks about an interaction style, back and forth dialogue. And then down here, patient, encouraging, right? So it kind of did the things that were in the original Study Buddy that was really, really long. And I took the information that I gave it and went ahead. So what I might do is I might say, okay, give me a question to solve. And just see what it does. And so since we're already in energy, it should be able to go ahead and come up with something. And so it did. It's just I had to scroll down. One of the problems is when you do this side by side, there's not a lot of space. And so it's a little bit difficult. What I could do instead is I could go ahead, just hit save at this particular point. So all right, so I did hit save on the gem that I had created. In the meantime, I came back to the main gem manager screen by clicking on the left side. And so I'm back to this point. And so here is the energy study buddy that I had created. And so the reason I did that is it's a little easier to test full screen if I go back to here and just click on energy. And so now you can see that I have a full screen so I can do some testing. So let's say I need some help understanding energy. And so we'll see how it responds and see what it does. And so the testing process is an important process to make sure whatever prompt you put in there does what I want. So it's, being super positive, is there a specific problem from the packet? So I'm not going to refer to the packet. Let's go big picture question it's asking. So let's go big picture and see what it does. But yeah, I should be able to refer to a problem in the packet and it would help me through that. But you don't have a copy of the packet, so we're not going to do it that way. And so here, this is kind of starting to show us what the different forms of energy are and where they can transfer. And so it's doing what I want. Talks about conservation energy, which is a big idea. Let's look at a roller coaster. What type of energy from the list do you think a roller coaster has sitting completely still at the top? And so if I type in UG, which stands for gravitational potential energy, let's see what it does. It should say yes. Classic choice, top of the hill. So it's giving me some positive feedback. When the coaster drops down the hill, it gains height, it loses height, but gains a lot of speed based on our definitions. So let's do a wrong answer. Let's call it work and see what it does. The actual answer is kinetic energy. And so testing what a student could or could not put in there is not a bad thing. And so, see, there's an error right there, spot on. As the roller coaster accelerates down the hill, so it says spot on, but it's actually telling me the right answer. So it is actually correct. It didn't correct my wrong answer, but it gave the right answer, which is somewhat interesting. And so let's, energy currency, how do you think the amount of kinetic, let's say it gets bigger, which is also a wrong answer. The energy is conserved. That's the whole point of this unit. And so it should actually be the same. So I'm saying kinetic energy gets larger. Yeah, so I'm going to need to do some editing of this particular thing. So if the roller coaster loses gravitational at the bottom, the entire amount transforms into kinetic. So that's a true statement, but it's giving me some positive feedback on questions that aren't 100% correct. Although I didn't specify, like when I answered this question up here, this one right here, I said it gets bigger. Maybe something that I want it to do is ask clarifying questions before giving a final answer. So, let's try that. Let's go back to my gem manager. So the symbol for gems right there. So I'm going to go back to my gem manager. I'm going to go hit edit. And I'm going to go down to right here. And actually, I think as part of the purpose and the goals, guide students through conceptual and mathematical understanding. Let's do, so when the student gives a short answer or uses an ambiguous, I'm spelling it wrong. Oh, I spelled it right. Ambiguous pronoun, prompt the student for clarification. I might add one more thing. Let's see, Socratic method, provide hints. Let's go like that. Make sure in your responses that you are clear on the validity of the student's answer and that you communicate that effectively. All right, so I'm going to add those in there. I think we're going to try that without doing the Gemini thing, so I'm going to hit update. So I've made a few edits to the prompt based upon feedback that I have. And so I can continue to test it and see how it's working. And I try to test it in a way where a student might test it. Let's look at a pendulum. Not that a student might ask it that way, but it's a good question. One that I think is outside the packet, so we'll see what it does and see what kind of thing it's going to ask me. So we'll dive in before we look at any math. So it's trying to avoid the math first, which is good. I want it to do conceptual focus. What type of mechanical energy does the pendulum store when it's held up high? So I'm going to try the wrong answer. So up high, the answer is UG, so it's gravitational potential energy. Okay, so now some of the prompts that I have edited within there have actually fixed the overly positive attitude. So instead of saying you're right, it has no kinetic energy, which is what it did before. Now it's saying, oh, wait, let's look at that. Kinetic energy is because it's moving. So anyway, that this is the type of thing that you need to do and test, especially when writing your own prompt. But even if you're editing a pre-made prompt, these kind of things are important. Now, the last thing that I do want to show you is you can actually go ahead and you can share these. And so actually, this is the class that I want. So this was for honors. So when you're in Classroom, I'm already on the classwork tab. I can hit create, and you're going to notice down here, there are some other options. So I created a gem. So I'm going to click on that gem, and you can start creating gems here too. Matter of fact, you can use some of these other prompts to help you, like a study partner or a quiz me, a brainstorm, right? So there's things that you can start from here. But since I created this example separately, I can click on the pre-made or the ones that I made, and then click on the name of that. And I'm going to go ahead and attach that gem to this material. And so it's going to create that. Now it does, it pops back into here, which I think is a strange UI choice. I guess it's just to make sure that it's the right one. And then I can go Energy Study Buddy in Google Classroom, just so that they know it. And then one of the interesting things that it does is there's this highlight at the top of the class. So I just want to show you that as well. So I'm going to post it. Of course, all my students will get a notification and then I'll delete it. But yeah. And so what happens is there's this class learning tool part that is at the top of the classwork tab. And so that gem is here, and I can have it up here for as long as I want, or I'll show you how to get rid of it. And then I have the actual material down here that was created. And so if I click on that, it also shows the gem. This will show how many people have opened it. Unfortunately, it doesn't like have a dialogue of how they interacted with where other AI tools do. I can get rid of this highlight so it's not sitting at the top by clicking on the three dots and selecting unhighlight, and then it just exists down below. So anyway, the point of this was to show you a way to create your own prompt. Use Gemini to help you with the prompt, test it, and if you see things that you want to change or be more specific, then you can go back to the prompt, edit it, and try to massage it to the point that you have. And then finally, I showed you that you can post it in Google Classroom to share with your students. So hopefully that helps you create a study buddy.